After I lost my husband, I kept a secret in Italy that my son never knew. Catherine Johnson was looking out the window of her home in Scarsdale when the phone rang with the call she had long feared. It was Michael, her son, letting her know he was coming over with his father's estate documents to finalize everything. Her heart raced as she realized he would soon discover the regular bank transfers to Italy she had hidden for over 3 decades. Michael had always been inquisitive, unlike his father, who preferred not to ask questions about certain things. Now, at 42, he worked as an accountant and had access to all the family's bank statements. Catherine knew she couldn't hide the monthly payments sent to Jennifer Miller in Florence much longer. "Mom, I need to understand these international transfers," Michael said as soon as he arrived, spreading papers across the living room table. "There are 31 years of regular payments. The amount now equals over $15,000 a month." Catherine's throat went dry. She had rehearsed this conversation countless times, but never found the right words. "They're donations, son, to a charity I helped when I was young and traveling in Europe." "Charity?" Michael raised an eyebrow. "Mom, the beneficiary's name is an individual, not an organization. And these documents show you've been visiting Italy every year since I was a child." The tension in the air was thick. Catherine had always told her son her annual trips were for European spas, a necessary escape after years of caring for the family and her husband's business. She never imagined she'd be confronted with proof. "You never let me come with you," Michael continued, his voice heavy with hurt. "You said you needed time alone, but now I find out that wasn't the whole truth." Catherine stood and walked to the window, gazing at the garden she and her husband had tended for decades. The white roses Richard had planted still bloomed, a daily reminder of the man who had loved her unconditionally, even knowing the full truth. "Michael, some things in life are more complicated than they seem." "Then explain it to me." He slammed his hand on the table. "Dad's been gone for 2 years, and now I find out our family has been supporting someone in Italy for over 30 years. I have a right to know who this Jennifer Miller is and why she's been receiving a fortune every month." Hearing her daughter's name spoken by her son made Catherine tremble. For so many years, she had kept the two worlds separate, protecting everyone from a truth that could shatter the family they had built in the United States. "She was important to me during a difficult time in my life." "What time?" Michael wasn't accepting vague answers. "Mom, these documents show you've known this woman since before I was born. There are records of transfers starting when I was 5. Catherine took a deep breath. The bank account had been opened when Jennifer turned 18 and could receive the money directly. Before that, the funds had gone to the family who raised her in Napa Valley. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now back to the story. "Michael, sit here with me." Catherine gestured to the couch. "What I'm about to tell you will change everything you think about our family." He hesitated, but the gravity in his mother's voice made him comply. Catherine took his hands, noticing how much they resembled his father's. "When I was 22, before I met your father, I lived in New York City and worked as a hotel receptionist. That's where I met Anthony Russo, an Italian businessman visiting the United States on work." "Mom, let me finish," she interrupted. "Anthony was married, but his wife lived in Italy. He spent months here taking care of the family business. We fell in love, Michael. It was an intense love, the kind you think only exists in movies." Michael began to understand where the conversation was heading, but he still couldn't fully process it. "I got pregnant by him. When I told him, Anthony was desperate. His family in Italy was very traditional, very powerful. He said if they found out about the pregnancy, they'd take the child from me to raise there, and I'd never see her again." Tears began to roll down Catherine's face. It was the first time in decades she had spoken about those months of terror and uncertainty. "He gave me 2 options. Go to Italy as his secret mistress, living in the shadows, or stay in the United States and never see him or the child again. I chose a third option he never expected." "What option?" Michael whispered. "I fled to Pennsylvania when I was 6 months along. I told Anthony I'd lost the baby. In truth, I went to a small town near Lancaster where a distant cousin helped me. Jennifer was born there. The silence in the room was deafening. Michael tried to process the information that he had a sister he'd never known about. But why? How? Because I couldn't raise her alone, knowing Anthony would look for her. He had resources, power, influence. An Italian family adopted Jennifer, but I kept in touch. When I returned to New York City, I met your father a few months later. Catherine stood and walked to an old cabinet, where she retrieved a small golden key. With it, she opened a hidden drawer Michael had never noticed. Richard knew everything from the start. When we started dating, I told him about Jennifer. He said he loved me regardless of my past, but asked for one thing, that the child stay in Italy to avoid complicating our life here. Dad knew I had a sister. Michael's voice was choked. Not only knew, he helped me arrange the transfers when we married. It was his idea to set up the bank account to ensure Jennifer had a decent life. Your father was an extraordinary man, Michael. Catherine pulled several photographs from the hidden drawer. They showed an elegant blonde woman who had grown up among the hills of Napa Valley. In the more recent photos, she stood beside luxury cars in front of a grand villa. She grew up thinking she was a Brazilian orphan adopted by Italians. Only recently, when she turned 30, did I tell her the truth about being her mother. But I never mentioned you or your father. Michael picked up one of the photos. The woman had green eyes like his, the same face shape. She looks just like me, he murmured. Jennifer studied business and now manages several properties for the family that adopted her. She's independent, successful. She never needed the money we sent, but it was my way of trying to make up for lost time. And the yearly trips? I visited her every year, always on her birthday. I said I was going to spas, but in truth I spent a week with my daughter. Those were the only moments I could be a mother to both children I had. Michael stood abruptly, pacing the room like a caged animal. All these years, you hid from me that I have a sister. Dad died and never told me. How could you do this to me? To protect you. Catherine reached for her son's arm, but he pulled away. Michael, you were our priority. We didn't want you growing up feeling less loved or sharing our attention. Less loved. He laughed bitterly. Mom, you sent her a fortune for 30 years. You could have brought her here. She could have grown up with us. And destroy the life she'd already built there. She had adoptive parents who loved her, friends, a culture. I couldn't just rip her away from all that. The discussion was interrupted by the ringing of the phone. Catherine looked at the screen and paled. It was an international call from Italy. Hello, she answered with a trembling voice. Signora Catherine, it's Jennifer. I need to speak with you urgently. It was Jennifer speaking in Italian. Catherine replied in Italian as well, a skill Michael didn't know his mother had. Yes, dear, what's wrong? I heard about Richard's death from your letters. I want to come to the United States. It's time I meet my brother. Catherine nearly dropped the phone. Jennifer was saying she wanted to come to the US to meet her brother. I can't talk now, Catherine whispered, glancing at Michael, who was watching the conversation with curiosity. I'll call you back later. She hung up, her hands shaking. Who was that? Michael asked. Catherine knew there was no escaping now. The secret she had kept for decades was about to explode once and for all. It was Jennifer. She's coming to the United States. She wants to meet you. What? Michael sat down heavily. She knows I exist? I told her about you after your father passed. I thought she had the right to know she had a brother, but I never imagined she'd come here. When? I don't know. She said it's urgent. Michael, I need to ask you something very important. After all these lies, now you want to ask me for favors? They're not lies, son. They were omissions to protect all of you. Jennifer doesn't know you found out about the money. She grew up in Italy, has a stable life there. If she finds out you're questioning the financial support, she might feel like a burden to our family. Michael ran his hands through his hair, trying to gather his thoughts. Mom, I need time to process all this. A sister I never knew. A father who knew and never told me. 3 decades of lies. I understand. But Jennifer could arrive any moment. She's impulsive, always has been. Once she makes up her mind, nothing can change it. What's she like? Catherine smiled for the first time in the conversation. Smart, determined, stubborn, just like you. She learned to speak perfect Portuguese through tutors I hired. She always knew she was originally American. And her adoptive parents? Joseph and Margaret Russo. Yes, they're distant relatives of her biological father. When Anthony found out I'd lied about the pregnancy, he arranged the adoption within the family. Jennifer grew up knowing she was adopted but as a true daughter to the Russos. So she grew up with her biological father's last name without even knowing? Exactly. Fate can be ironic sometimes. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. 2 days later, Catherine was in the kitchen making coffee when she heard a car pull up outside. She looked out the window and saw a taxi parking. An elegant young blonde woman stepped out, carrying only a small suitcase. It was Jennifer. Catherine rushed to the door, her heart pounding. She had imagined this moment so many times, but never like this, unplanned in the middle of a family crisis. Jennifer, how did you get here so fast? I took the first flight from Rome, she replied in Portuguese with a slight Italian accent. Mama, we need to talk. The two embraced at the gate. Catherine noticed how much her daughter had matured since her last visit. At 31, Jennifer radiated confidence and determination. Where's my brother? She asked directly. He's in the office. Jennifer, I need to explain some things first. You don't have to. I know you told him about the money. Joseph explained everything to me. Catherine froze in the hallway. Joseph? Your adoptive father knows. Of course he knows. He always knew who my birth mother was and why you sent money. Mom, do you really think you could hide this from a man who's worked in finance for 40 years? But he never said anything, because he respected your privacy. But when Richard died and you told me about Michael, Joseph thought I should come meet my American family before it was too late. They entered the room where Catherine had left the photographs scattered on the table. Jennifer picked up a recent picture of Michael and smiled. He looks just like Dad, Anthony, she said, catching Catherine off guard. You remember Anthony? Joseph showed me photos as I grew up. He told me he was my biological father, a businessman who died when I was little. Only recently did I find out he's still alive and never knew I was raised in his family. Catherine had to sit down. The situation was getting more complicated than she'd imagined. Jennifer, Anthony doesn't know you exist. I told him I'd lost the baby. I know, and I intend to keep it that way. I didn't come here because of him. I came because of my brother. Just then, Michael arrived from the office. He'd left early to clear his head, but the excitement of meeting his sister outweighed his anger. When he opened the door and saw the two women in the room, he froze in the hallway. The resemblance between him and Jennifer was striking. Michael, Jennifer stood up. I'm Jennifer, your sister. Hi, he replied shyly. You speak English? Of course, she smiled. I learned as a child. I always knew I'd come to the United States one day to meet my family. They stood there, studying each other curiously. Catherine noticed how they both tilted their heads the same way when thinking. Are you younger than me? Michael asked. 2 years younger. You were born in September 1982. I was born in March 1985. Mum, she knows everything about our family. Michael looked at Catherine, a mix of shock and indignation in his eyes. Not everything, Jennifer corrected. I only found out about you 2 months ago when Catherine told me about Richard's death. Until then, I thought I was an only child. How do you feel knowing you have a brother? Michael asked. Curious, anxious, a little scared, she answered honestly. And you? Confused, betrayed, but also happy, I guess. Catherine watched her children's first meeting with a heavy heart. For decades, she'd imagined what it would be like if they met, but she could never have predicted exactly how it would go. Jennifer, where are you staying? Catherine asked. At a hotel near JFK, but actually I came here to propose something. What? Michael and Catherine asked at the same time. I want Michael to come with me to Italy to see the villa where I live. Joseph and Margaret want to meet Catherine's American son too. What? Michael nearly choked. Travel to Italy with someone I just met 5 minutes ago? We're siblings, Jennifer said simply. And there are things there you need to see to understand our family's story. What kind of things? Jennifer glanced at Catherine, who nodded in approval. Richard left some things at the villa for you. He visited Italy every year, you know. The room fell completely silent. Michael stared at his mother in shock. Dad went to Italy? Of course, Jennifer said. Every year he spent a week with us. How do you think I learned to speak English so well? Richard was like a father to me too. Michael sank into a chair. The revelations kept coming. Mom, Dad visited my sister every year and you never told me. Michael, Catherine began, but he cut her off. No more excuses. My whole life you've had this parallel life in Italy. Dad had another daughter. You had another life, and I was left here like an idiot thinking our family was just the three of us. You're not an idiot, Jennifer said softly. You were protected. Joseph always said that complicated families require difficult decisions. Family's complicated, Michael repeated in English. Our family isn't complicated, it's deceitful. Michael, you don't understand. Jennifer stepped closer to him. Richard used to tell me about you every year. He showed me photos, talked about your successes in school, college, work. You were his pride. Then why did he never bring me along? Because you had your life here, your friends, your girlfriend, your career. He didn't want to pull you away from your world just to put you in a complicated situation. And you all thought I couldn't handle having a sister. No. Jennifer shook her head. You thought I couldn't handle having a brother. I grew up feeling abandoned by my birth parents. It took me years to forgive Catherine and accept that she had valid reasons for leaving me in Italy. Michael looked at his sister more carefully. Beneath the elegance and confidence, he could see traces of an old pain. Do you hate me for growing up with our parents? No, she answered without hesitation. I envy you for growing up with Catherine and Richard. But I don't hate you. Joseph and Margaret gave me a wonderful life, but I always knew I had family in the United States. And now I want to get to know my brother properly. I want you to see where I grew up, meet the people who raised me. I want you to understand that our family is bigger and more complex than any of us imagined. Catherine watched her children talking and felt a mix of relief and terror. The secret was being revealed, but the consequences were still unpredictable. Jennifer, how long can you stay in the United States? And she asked. 2 weeks, but I want Michael to come back with me to Italy afterward. There are things Richard left for him there. What kind of things? Michael was intrigued. Letters, documents, a full explanation of why they made the decisions they did. Did he know I'd find out one day? Of course he did. Richard was a smart man. He knew after his death you'd investigate the family finances. Jennifer took her purse and pulled out a sealed envelope. This is for you. Richard gave it to me 2 years ago when he found out he was sick. Told me to give it only if Catherine told you about me. Michael took the envelope with trembling hands. His name was written in his father's handwriting. Can I read it now? Of course. He opened it carefully and pulled out several handwritten pages. My dear son Michael, if you're reading this letter, it means our family truth has finally come to light. I know you must be confused, maybe even angry at me and your mother. I want you to know that every decision we made was with both of you in mind. Jennifer is a daughter to me, just as you are my son. All these years I divided my love between you two, but I never divided my commitment. You were always my priority here in the United States, just as she was my responsibility in Italy. I know it's hard to understand now, but when you meet your sister, you'll see she's an extraordinary person. She has your intelligence, your determination, but also a sensitivity life taught her too soon. At the villa in Florence, I left important documents for you. They're the inheritance papers you'll share with Jennifer. Yes, she is your co-heir. But there are also letters I wrote all these years explaining our feelings, our fears, our hopes. Michael, your sister never wanted anything from our family except love. The money we sent was our way of trying to make up for absence. But what she truly wanted was to have a brother. Now you can have that. Take care of your mother. She carried this burden alone for too long. And take care of Jennifer. She may be strong and independent, but she's also your little sister. I love you more than words can say. Your father, Richard. Michael finished reading with tears in his eyes. Jennifer and Catherine waited in silence. He truly loved us equally, he murmured. Yes, said Jennifer, and now you can understand why I want you to come to Italy. There are more letters there, photos of all of us together, things that will help you understand our story. You have photos together? Many. Richard always asked Joseph to photograph our meetings. He said he wanted to show you one day. Michael looked at his mother. Mum, I'm going to Italy with her. Are you sure? Catherine asked worriedly. I am. I need to meet this part of our family you kept from me. I need to understand. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. 2 weeks later, Michael was at JFK Airport with Jennifer, ready to board the flight to Rome. Catherine accompanied them, torn between the joy of seeing her children together and the fear of what Michael might discover in Italy. Mom, don't you want to come with us? Michael asked. No, son. This trip is for the two of you. You need to get to know each other without my interference. Catherine is right, Jennifer agreed. Joseph and Margaret are eager to meet you, Michael. They've prepared a special welcome. During the flight, the siblings talked about their lives, discovering striking similarities. They both loved classical music, had a knack for numbers, hated crowds, and preferred deep conversations over small talk. Do you have a girlfriend? Jennifer asked. I was dating until I found out I had a secret sister. Michael laughed. Things got a little complicated. What about you? I've been single for 2 years. My last boyfriend couldn't understand why I felt so connected to the United States. Now I realize I was trying to hold on to a bond with the family I never knew. Did you always want to meet our family? Always. But Joseph said it was better to wait for the right time. When Richard passed, he said there was no reason to wait anymore. Joseph seems like a wise man. He is. He and Margaret gave me everything I needed, but they never tried to erase my American roots. On the contrary, they always encouraged me to stay in touch with Catherine. When they arrived in Florence, Michael was struck by the beauty of the region. The rolling hills of Napa Valley stretched as far as the eye could see, covered in vineyards and olive trees. Is this where you grew up? Yes. The villa is about 40 minutes from the city. You'll love it. The car that picked them up at the airport was driven by a man in his 60s, elegant and smiling. Michael, this is Joseph, my father, Jennifer introduced. Benvenuto nella nostra famiglia, Joseph said in heavily accented English. Welcome to our family. Thank you, Michael replied, trying to adjust to the surreal situation of meeting the adoptive grandparents of a sister he'd only known about for 2 weeks. The Russo villa was even more impressive than Michael had imagined. The 18th century building stood atop a hill, surrounded by perfectly manicured gardens and a collection of luxury cars he recognized from the photos his mother had shown him. Mom is preparing a special dinner, Jennifer said, as they climbed the front steps. Margaret Russo was waiting at the door. She was an elegant woman with graying hair who hugged Michael as if he were a beloved grandson. Michael, finally! Richard talked about you so much, she said in Italian accented English. You speak English? Of course. I needed to talk to Jennifer and Richard when they visited. I learned to communicate with my American family. During dinner, Michael discovered that the Russos knew intimate details about his life. They knew about his accounting degree, his relationships, his professional ambitions. Richard showed us your pictures every year, explained Joseph. He was very proud of his American son. Why did you never tell me about Jennifer when she was a child? Because it wasn't our decision, Margaret replied. Catherine and Richard knew what was best for both of you. We just did our part. And what was your part? To give Jennifer love, raise her, help her grow up knowing her roots without feeling abandoned, said Joseph. It wasn't easy. She always asked about her birth mother. And what did you tell her? The truth, Jennifer said. That she loved me very much but couldn't raise me in the United States, and that one day when I was ready I'd meet my American family. After dinner, Jennifer took Michael to Joseph's office, where the family's American records were kept. Richard left all this for you, she said, opening a cabinet full of folders. Michael found hundreds of letters his father had written over the years, explaining his thoughts about their family situation. There were also photos from every annual visit, showing Jennifer growing up alongside Richard, who clearly treated her as his own. One folder in particular caught his attention. For Michael, necessary explanations. Inside, he found a detailed document about the family's finances. Richard had calculated exactly how much it cost to raise Michael in the United States and ensured Jennifer received the equivalent amount over the years. He made a fair division, Michael murmured. More than fair, Jennifer agreed. He gave me opportunities I never would have had if I'd grown up as the daughter of a single mother in the United States in the 80s. You don't resent him for keeping me in the United States while you stayed here? No. He explained that you were the legitimate son, entitled to a traditional family life. I was the complication that needed to be resolved with love, without destroying what already existed. And you accept that? I do. Joseph taught me that love isn't a pie that shrinks when divided. Richard loved you as his son and me as his daughter too. There was no competition. In the following days, Michael explored the estate and saw the life his sister had built in Italy. Jennifer managed several villas in the region for American tourists, spoke 4 languages, and had an impressive network. You've done well for yourself here, Michael observed. Yes, but I always knew part of me was in the United States. That's why I never married or had children. I felt my life was incomplete. And now? Now I know I can have the best of both worlds. I have a brother in the United States and an established life here in Italy. Jennifer, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Did you ever want to meet Anthony, your birth father? She was silent for a long moment. Joseph showed me pictures of him when I was older. He said Anthony was important to Catherine, but never knew I existed. Honestly, I don't feel the need to meet him. Why? Because he abandoned Catherine when she needed him most. Maybe it was fear or family pressure, but the fact is she faced the pregnancy alone. Richard gave me a father, even from a distance. You're right. Besides, Jennifer smiled, now I have a brother. That's more family than I ever expected, growing up thinking I was an orphan. On his last night at the villa, Joseph called Michael for a private talk. How do you feel about all this? Still confused, but happy, Michael answered honestly. I always wanted siblings. Jennifer did too. You're both lucky to have found each other while still young. Joseph, may I ask how you feel about keeping this secret for so many years? It wasn't a secret to me. It was a responsibility. Catherine trusted her daughter to us, and Richard trusted that we would take good care of her. We did our part. But did you never question whether it was right to keep Michael and Jennifer apart? We did, but it wasn't our decision. We were only temporary guardians of the girl until the family in the United States was ready to reunite. And now, do you think we're ready? Now you're adults and can decide what kind of relationship you want to have. Our part is complete. On the flight back to the United States, Michael and Jennifer made plans. She would come to the US twice a year, and he would visit Italy annually. They discovered they had much in common and that the distance didn't need to be an obstacle to building a sibling relationship. Michael, do you forgive me for existing? Jennifer asked during the flight. Forgive you? He laughed. Jennifer, you're the best gift I've ever discovered in my life. I always felt lonely as an only child. Now I know I was never alone. Neither was I. We're lucky to have parents who loved us so much they kept this secret to protect us. Yes, and now we have each other. When they arrived in the United States, Catherine waited anxiously for them at the airport. How did it go? She asked as soon as she saw them. Enlightening, Michael replied, hugging his mother. Mom, I understand. I understand why you did what you did. Really? Richard loved us equally, just in different ways. He gave me stability and tradition here in the US. He gave Jennifer opportunities and culture in Italy. Neither of us was left without a father. And now, Catherine looked at both of them. Now we're a complete family, Jennifer said. I can come to the US whenever I want, and Michael can visit me in Italy. We don't have to hide anything anymore. In the following months, the family dynamic changed completely. Jennifer became a constant presence in Michael and Catherine's lives. She helped her mother organize the family business in the US and brought an international perspective that benefited everyone. Michael discovered having a sister was even better than he'd imagined. Jennifer was an advisor, confidant, and friend. Their cultural differences sparked interesting conversations and unique perspectives on life. "You know what amazes me the most?" Michael said to Catherine one day. "What?" "How Dad managed to love two families at once without either of us feeling less loved. Richard was a special man. He understood love has no borders or limits. Mum, do you think he'd be happy knowing Jennifer and I found each other?" "I'm certain of it. It was his dream to see you two together one day." A year after the secret was revealed, the family held a memorial for Richard at the Italian villa. It was the first time Catherine had returned to Europe since meeting the children. Joseph, Margaret, Catherine, Michael, and Jennifer gathered in the villa's garden to plant an olive tree in memory of the man who had united them, even after death. "Richard got what he wanted," Joseph said as they worked the soil together. "A family bound by love, not obligation. He always said family is who we choose to love, not just who shares our blood," Margaret recalled. "And now we're all family," Jennifer said, looking at the group. Michael took a handful of Italian soil and let it slip through his fingers. "Dad planted seeds of love on two continents. Now those seeds have grown and found each other. And they'll keep growing for generations to come," Catherine added. When the olive tree was planted, they formed a circle around the young sapling. "What would you say to Richard if he were here?" Jennifer asked. "Thank you for having the courage to love beyond conventions," said Michael. "Thank you for teaching me that family is about choices, not just circumstances," said Catherine. "Thank you for trusting us with your daughter," said Joseph and Margaret together. "And thank you for giving me a family I never thought I'd have," added Jennifer. That evening, during dinner at the villa, they made plans for the future. Jennifer was considering opening an office in the United States to serve American tourists who wanted to visit Italy. Michael was thinking of expanding the family business to include Italian imports. "You're building bridges between the two countries, just like Richard did with his two families," observed Joseph. "That's what families do," said Catherine. "They build bridges where others see only obstacles." "Mom, can I ask you something?" said Michael. "Of course." "Do you regret any of the decisions you made?" Catherine thought carefully before answering. "I regret waiting so long to tell the truth. You could have known each other years earlier. But I don't regret protecting you when you were children." "And you, Jennifer?" Michael asked his sister. "I don't regret a thing. Every decision brought me here with you. If things had been different, maybe we wouldn't be the people we are today." "True," Michael agreed. "I grew up loved and secure in the United States. You grew up independent and cultured in Italy. Now we can combine our experiences." "Richard knew this would happen one day," said Margaret. "He always said true love finds its way no matter the obstacles." "To Richard," said Joseph, raising his glass of wine. "To Richard," they all repeated, toasting the memory of the man who had brought them together through love. 3 years later, Michael was married to an Italian woman he'd met through Jennifer. Catherine had moved to a smaller house in New York City, but traveled regularly to Italy. Jennifer split her time between the two countries, managing businesses in both. The family that began with a secret had transformed into a network of love-spanning continents. Richard had left more than a financial inheritance. He'd left a legacy of unconditional love that transcended borders, cultures, and time. "Do you think Dad ever imagined we'd end up like this?" Michael asked Catherine during one of their weekly video calls. "I think he hoped. Richard always believed genuine love can't be contained by circumstances or secrets. He planted love in all of us, knowing it would one day blossom and bring us together." He was right. Yes, he was. And now you two can pass that love on to the next generation. Jennifer, who had just arrived from Italy for a month-long visit, joined the conversation. "What are you talking about?" "About how Dad Richard managed to create an international family through love," Michael replied. "He didn't create it," Jennifer corrected with a smile. "He just revealed what was already there. We were always family. We just didn't know it." "She's right," Catherine agreed. "Family isn't about secrets or revelations. It's about love that persists, even when we don't know it exists. And now that we know, said Michael, embracing the two most important women in his life, we can love consciously. End of story. Tell us what you thought of this story about family and secrets. Do you think Catherine made the right decisions? Leave your comment and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories.